Welcome to All Things in the Name of Love. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Yay! Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. And today I have with me Abby Havermann, who is a psychotherapist who turned coach. She's a dynamic speaker, skill trainer, and an illuminator of the unconscious self-betrayals that drive our everyday challenges. And I love that. Combining psychology, neuroscience, and ancient wisdom, she teaches you how to rewire habitual patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior to thrive instead of survive. And before I say anything else, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
'Cause I know what a minefield slash jigsaw puzzle, however you want to call it, the subconscious can be. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being on my show, and thank you for the work you do before I even start talking to you.
Oh my gosh, Sophia, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to ask you first, like, tell me a little bit about that journey of like going from where you were to where you are and how that's unfolded for you. And like what got you interested in like diving deep in the subconscious.
Yeah, well, it's such a great question because, I trained as a psychotherapist. I went to Smith College School for Social Work and I got a master's degree in social work. And that's a very, very clinical program.
Mhm.
So we were trained in all the major psychologies, and then I worked in hospitals with chronically mentally ill, acute mentally ill, Jerry's, adolescents, adults, all of it,
Okay.
family, and then I opened a private practice, and I did that. I was in private practice for about 10 years, full time, private pay, and it was great, and I really enjoyed it. And through that whole time, as any good therapist, I was also in therapy. I was doing my own work and all of those things. And it was great. But, what I came to realize, after sort of moving, closing my practice and moving into coaching many years later was something that I sort of intuitively always understood, but didn't really know until I began to learn about neuroscience. And
Mm,
what I know now, without a doubt, is that you can, as psychotherapy would teach you, to just uncover why do you feel this way and get really conscious. I mean, when I was growing up and even when I was in school, it was kind of like knowing why is anywhere between 50 and 90% of the solution. And
mhm.
nothing could be further from the truth,
Right.
because you can know exactly why you feel the way you feel. You can know that, and you can just keep wiring that neural network in. I feel this way because this happened to my childhood. I feel this way because this happened to my childhood. And you can never change.
Right.
Or you could never know why. Like my clients now, like, I might know broad strokes, but I don't know all the details of their childhood or all of these things. I know some big pieces when
Mhm.
something comes in that we need to unravel longer, I need more information about, or they need to we do that.
Mhm.
But you could also know no reason, you have no idea why you feel the way you feel, and completely change yourself and your life. So
Yeah.
that's kind of, so I started just really diving deep into that and learning that. And then of course, when you look at ancient wisdom practices, right? Like whether it's, Buddhism or, yogic science or, any of these things, which I don't claim to know in any deep level, but have studied a little bit here and there. It's all the same. It's like science is just trying to figure out what we already know and,
Yep.
and squashed and tried to forget and tried to hide,
Hmm.
for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So,
No, I
um,
get that.
it's inside you, right? Like it's everything we have is right here.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I got there.
I love that because I've gone through well, one of my biggest missions in life is to fully embody and remember my Christ consciousness because we all have that. And so all of the subconscious things, I'm like, okay, we're on. We're
Yeah.
gonna find them. And so I've done it mostly through somatic work,
Yeah.
um, where I just feel into it. And there have been some pretty epic things that I have no idea. Like it's to the point where I've done it often enough that my body will just wake me up and I'll feel something
Yeah.
present with it. It'll move and I'll cry or whatever the energy is, like the other couple of weeks ago, I was punching my pillow violently. Um, I don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
I don't need to.
You don't have to. And that's what I was going to say, actually, that I forgot. I lost my way when I was talking. But when you said the subconscious, it was so funny because when I was a psychotherapist and I was in analysis. I mean, I was in with one of like the leading training analysts in
Mhm.
that area. I lived and breathed subconscious. I did not realize that I had any unconscious thoughts. Like I truly don't think I knew it. I thought, no, I know I live in this. I do this all day long, and I study my countertransference and my, and at work and at home. Like I know, I'm aware. And that's why I laugh so much when people tell me now, like, I mean, so if I had a dime for every person that said, oh no, I'm very self-aware. We can only be so self-aware. It's just how the brain works. It doesn't allow us to be
Right.
that
I mean,
self-aware.
we get another nugget.
Yeah, we'll get a little information and it moves us forward. But that's why I screwed my life up so massively back then, because I thought I was so aware, but I wasn't. I was completely unaware of the subconscious, automatic programs I was running on, thoughts, behaviors, feelings. Yeah.
Oh
So,
yeah, and when you get into academia, whoo,
yeah.
it's
Yeah. So to your point, that somatic, that is so brilliant, and it's something that I don't know about you, when it sounds like you were in corporate when you came up and everything as well. And when I was young, like we were not taught to trust that
no.
at all.
I shut
Physical
mine
is just
down.
physical.
I shut mine down.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and it's so funny because like when we remember that, like just the ability to like slow down and feel your heart.
mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, and not only that, but I mean, heart mouth has proven, because I'm a certified heart mouth instructor as well, and slowing down and getting in touch with your heart and breathing in and out of your heart and doing some very simple practices that they have proven to help people get into heart coherence. Not only is it just the connection that you get, but you actually become energized. Like right before this podcast, I was just on another one and I was kind of like, oh God, I'm so drained. Sat down, like did an exercise to refuel my body, because we leak emotional energy all
Hmm.
the time. We're constantly leaking energy, and it causes us to just become exhausted.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, especially when we have the people pleasing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't have that one. I got over that a long time ago. I never had it, but so many people have it.
Oh
So many of
yeah.
my clients have it, and it really, I have equally as damaging ones, don't get me wrong. I just never, people probably think I'm selfish because I don't have that particular one, or at least I don't think I do, but again, it could be unconscious, right?
Right.
Um, but, um, but, but yes, that leaks so much energy.
Oh
Saying
yeah.
something you mean no, and oh my God, exhausting. I have clients that literally come to me and they're sick, like physically
Oh
sick,
yeah.
and have been for years. And as soon as we unwind that, they're
Hmm.
healthy again.
Oh,
And
I had it really
it's,
deep,
yeah, yeah,
and I gave myself adrenal fatigue from it.
yes, yeah.
And I remember yeah, it was last year. I went up to Orcas Island for a couple months, and right before I left, I heard eat beef. And I've been plant-based for like 12 years, and I'm like, eat beef. So so I got some. I felt really awkward because I'm like, what did I used to eat? And I ate some filet mignon because I remember I like that. and
Yep.
and all of a sudden I had all this energy again. I'm like, what the heck? And then I found like beef organ supplements, and I
Yes,
started,
yes, we eat those. We have those all the time, heart and soul.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like it was such a like massive shift in the energy levels. And I've since learned through studying Chinese meridians that the kidney, it doesn't regenerate the way the liver does. So when we deplete the kidney, that's all the energy we have. And I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I don't have a
Yeah. Gotta restore
lot.
that. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just really interesting, like how like these programs affect us physiologically.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, tremendously. And we have so many excuses for keeping them in place.
Mhm.
You know, it's like we get so certain about this is the way to be, this is how to feel, this is right, this is wrong, you know, and then we sort of operate automatically on those assumptions. And a lot of times, you know, I think particularly for women and people pleasing women, you know, they'll say, well, this is the right thing to do. Like, no, you don't do that. You don't, you know, say no or whatever. When some, you know, they kind of give me attitude, you know,
Mhm.
like I'm so selfish, you know, for suggesting this, you know, like, or imagining or just opening your focus a little bit. Like, what if, you know, and we have all of these excuses. And it's so ridiculous because, of course, the more we just pay attention and take care of ourselves, the more we have to give, the more energy we have to give, the more authentically we give, the less resentment we have,
Mhm.
right? So, and what I love to point out to my clients too, I have a women's group too, and I say this all the time, it drives them crazy, is that, you know, when they're running around people pleasing because it's the right thing to do, because they're so generous, it's total bullshit. Because
Mhm.
the reason that we people please and do all those things is because we feel anxious when we think that someone is upset with us.
Mhm.
And so we can run around saying that we're doing all these things for other people all we want. We're not. We're doing them so that we can calm our own anxiety down.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we wouldn't do it, you
Right.
know? And I have the same pattern in a different one. My hyperachiever like burnt me out so bad last year. And that story is, you know, you're worthy if you do all these things. If your business is this size, if you're on that stage, if you blah, 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 then you're worthy, right? And the self-important part says, oh, but I have to. And people, and, you know, whatever, it's bullshit. It's like, no, no, no. You're driving yourself like this because you have attached your worth to what you do in the world. No
Mhm.
one needs you that much. You know, like, you know, like you're just not
And
that
it's so
80,000
humbling.
Yeah,
It's
it
like,
is. It is. But sometimes I find that we have to like humbling ourselves in that way because none of us, particularly as women, want to be seen that way, right?
mhm.
Like we don't want to be seen as we think so much of ourselves. That's like the last thing that women want.
Right, right.
So when I can point it out that way, that's when they want to become conscious of it because they're like, well, I don't want to be that person. I think I'll get a little interested in what I'm doing here because that doesn't sound good to me. And
Mhm.
now you've taken the story away that they're just being so generous and thoughtful. And that's why they're resentful all the time, you know?
Yeah, and that resentment piece is so deep in our psyche. I think it's in the collective consciousness because we've had this program running for so it's intergenerational.
Yes. Oh, it's so true. Yeah. We're just passing it down to the girl and the girls, even young girls today who have no reason, you know, if you look at, you know, where we came from, to feel that way. Other than that, it's literally passed down. And what I
Wow.
always tell people is, you know, we always talk about how we're guilt ridden, right? Like I have all that stuff too, like always feeling guilty and blah blah blah. But a lot of times people will people please or do whatever they do because they feel guilty. They feel
Mhm.
guilty to say no. And the way that we make decisions is basically we will choose whatever is more comfortable for us. So
Mm.
what I always tell people is that if you keep saying yes when you mean no because you feel guilty, and eventually you feel resentful because you're over functioning, all you're saying is that you're more comfortable feeling resentment than you are with feeling guilt.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you wouldn't do that. And you will continue to do that until you can come up against yourself and say, this guilt pattern is not serving me. It's not the truth. It's not accurate. It's a story. This self betrayal is more uncomfortable to me, betraying myself by doing something I'm not in a place to do, than feeling resentful is.
Mhm. I love how succinctly you place that because it is that bear those ills we have rather than flee to those we know not of.
Yeah.
And yet, when you are have the courage to look at yourself, and I self-reflect probably more than I want to, it's like, oh, here's this aspect of me that's been actually like a lens through which I see the entire world,
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel good anymore. So why am I doing it?
Yeah.
And then I'll do the somatic work. Okay, where am I feeling it and where is it showing
Right.
up in my body? And so I don't go in my head because a long time ago I used to question my inner child. And I've been doing research since I was 18. So this is like, I don't know, 37 years or something like that. Yeah, I did the math right. Okay. So one day I'm doing this work and I'm like, well, tell me what's going on. And she's like, will you stop? I'm like, what? And she's like, stop questioning me.
Huh.
I'm 6 and you're 50 something and you're torturing me because
Yeah.
like you're bringing all of that ability to like fine tune an obsessive compulsion level of detail to a 6-year-old. Do you know how intimidating that is? I was like,
Wow.
oh my God, I'm so sorry. So
Yeah.
I stopped asking questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that little girl, like inside, just needs to be held and just sat with and given compassion and empathized, right? With like, she she's unscathed. It's us that bring all of the damage, into
Right.
the thing. So the more we can
You
develop
know,
that empathy for ourselves, the more healing that comes. But empathy, self-empathy is exceedingly difficult for people.
yeah. Yeah, because it's just it's not something we haven't been taught. And, for me, like I'm getting back into shape. This is one of the many times I get back into shape. So yesterday I lifted weights for an hour. I'm like,
Oh my
okay, I'm
God.
gonna do lower body today. And today my body's like, I don't really want to. And it wasn't because I felt it's just the energies that are flowing in right, with the Schumann resonance and all that. So I'm trying to tune into my body. In addition to like taking care of myself physically through exercise, I'm also taking care of myself energetically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to not guilt myself about, well, I put this new program in and it's like, okay, no, if my body's saying, please don't, I have to listen to that.
I love that you said that because I think one of the major pitfalls for people who are interested in self evolution and evolving and trying to do this work is that you scratch the surface and you get some ideas of like, okay, these are the things I should do for myself. But obviously, we know exercise, meditation is good. I should do these things. They will
Right.
help me, right? And so they go ahead and they have parts of their personality that are on board. They're like, yeah, let's get up early and meditate and everything's going well. And then all of a sudden another part of the personality shows up one day and says, I don't feel like getting out of bed and meditating. Or the brain takes over in the meditation and all you're doing is thinking, 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 and you just can't get into it. And and they then take that and unconsciously work the same program over again by saying, you didn't do this, you suck, you piece of blah 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 blah, you're failing, you're da 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 da. And they don't realize that all of that self-flagellation and that shame for not whatever exercising that day, eating well that day, doing your meditation, whatever it is exactly the program that you're trying to get out of by doing all of those things. It's the
Hmm.
same part of you. So the self-empathy piece is just so important, and realizing that it goes through the whole thing. You can't beat yourself up for not meditating
Right.
and think that you're being a different person. That's the same person
Right.
as
Right.
the person who was beating themselves up before they were meditating.
Right. Right. No, I totally get it because like, it's this how can we show up for each other? Like, right before I got on, I just felt the need to meditate.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, it's like 100 degrees in Oregon right now. And exercising right now in a garage that's not insulated, not gonna happen. So it's like, and it will because I have the desire to when, I'm not feeling the energy or whatever, but like if I feel meditate now, I'm gonna meditate now. And it's okay.
Yes. It's more than okay. It's more than okay, right? Because it's what I call making a decision from the inside out instead of the outside in. If I'm
Mm,
looking at the outside in, I would look at my planner and I would look at the gajillion projects that I need to do, and I got to get back to my team about this, that, and the other, and I got to do this, and I got to schedule this, and da 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 da. And so needs that. That's all outside
mhm,
of me. But if I look inside of me, and some days, you wake up and it's like you've got all these things to do and you don't feel like doing any of them, you know? And then if you look inside, if I look inside of me and say, well, what would bring me joy right now? What
mhm,
would be inspiring for me to do right now? That's an inside out. I'm going to choose that because it's what's resonating inside of me. And so when I'm struggling, if I'm really burnt out or I'm tired or things are going on, I mean, I try and do this anyway, but I definitely reel back and like, wait a minute, what is the thing that I could do that would feel joyful and inspiring?
mhm.
And then I'm fueling myself with energy as opposed to depleting it more and then trying to go outside in and being like, oh, and you didn't get that done either. And you
Right,
couldn't keep your focus for that. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
right. Well, I do two things every morning in my journal. The first question I ask is, what will create a fantastic day?
I love
And
that.
it's usually things like grounding or meditate or play or listen to music or something. Like it has nothing to do with a doing.
Right.
It's just the thing. And the second thing I do is, what does my soul want to tell me?
Yeah.
And because I'm waking up, I get some really cool stuff.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. Yeah, I love that. It's
'Cause-
hard though, I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like it's hard to like I've been I've been thinking the last few days, I've had a really hard time being aware, like just being conscious of what it is that's going on inside me. Like what's it's just we're in Colorado for a few weeks on vacation and there's just all these moving parts and everything. And I'm seeing people out here for work and, working, blah, 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 and, family and all this stuff. And I'm just like, go, go, go. And I can ask myself that kind of a question. And it's like, I got nothing. Like I'm just so like on autopilot that it's
Mhm,
hard to get any intel, and I have those times where that happens, where it's
mhm,
just like, all right, I've gone, as Chief would say, to sleep, I've gone to sleep.
right.
I'm not, the body is taken over, the automatic programming is taken over. And I like to not shame people for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's just sometimes how it is.
Mhm,
Those are the parts that are out, you
right.
know. Um, but yes, I love the idea and I love it even more when I can actually get the information back. Like, oh, this is what my soul is saying,
Right. No, it's like I do it first thing in the morning.
Yep.
So I don't have anything else popping in yet because I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna grab the journal, ask myself what will create a fantastic day. And that just lights me up because like I get to choose that. And
Right.
then I'll check in with my soul and my soul's like, honey, you have no idea what a great job you're doing. I'm like, no, I really don't. and and how you're moving through stuff and like what your lucid dreams are and like I just get all this intel that I don't know because I know what I do know is that our consciousness is shifting
Yeah.
and those of us who are exceptionally like myself exceptionally sensitive feel it really intensely and it's like okay I don't have the capacity to deal with all these frequencies coming in my beautiful temple that's 3D turning into a crystalline body. I need to just not do, just be.
Just be. Just be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and honestly, like, I think that's on the back of my card, actually. Pay, stop, stop thinking about what to do and start thinking about who to be.
Yeah.
Because, we're just never taught that, right? And if everybody, imagine what the world would be like if everybody just focused on who they were being.
That's amazing. It would be amazing,
It'd be
truly.
amazing. It would be. Yeah.
Just like simple things. Like this morning, I'm living with some friends, and one of the things is we water the garden, like all the plants, because it's like 100 degrees outside. I just took my shoes off and I'm just watering plants. So that's what I'm being right now. Somebody watering plants.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I could just have that experience and see how the plants are doing, and just be in that interaction that's intentionally slowing myself down because I'm not even thinking of the next plant. I'm thinking of what does the plant need in this moment? When is it filled with water? So then I can move to the next one. And it's a practice. It's a practice.
No kidding.
I do daily to try to slow myself down. And sometimes I succeed
Yeah.
so well because I'm present and I love being present. My whole body's like, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's not consistent.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's just harder that, I mean, the brain just takes over that automatic programming. It
Mhm.
just, I mean, you know, it's your chief explained it like a horse and a cart. He was like a mystic in the early 1900s. And he said, if the cart is the physical body, the driver is the mind, and the horse is like the emotional body. So if the driver can start yanking, right? And like, come on, no, be present, be present, be present, go this way. Well, if that horse is not interested in that, you're not going anywhere. Like there are just different parts of us that, show up sometimes with their arms folded and just say, nope, not today, and the mind can have all these great intentions. And there's something else that's showing up and saying, nah, not going to happen.
And to have compassion for that is so critical because like we're so used to like being the space of the should.
This should, exactly.
The
Yeah.
should, not like the should.
Yeah. Don't should on yourself, right? They say, yeah. Yeah, it's and it's really dominated our society, and there's so much certainty now, so much like everybody's certain, of course, of completely diabolically different things, but
Mhm.
they're all very, very certain. This is the way it should be.
I
This is
know.
the candidate. This is whatever. I mean, it's so divisive, and there's no curiosity anymore. Without curiosity, how are you going to grow? How are you going to evolve?
Right. And the things that they're clear about don't matter.
Right. It doesn't. It's
It's
all the
like,
same. That's the hilarity of it. Nobody realizes that they're all doing the exact same thing.
I
It
know.
doesn't matter what you're certain about.
And that we're all connected. We're all interconnected. Like there's no separation. It's an
Right. There's none.
illusion.
It's
So
an illusion.
if you're hating on the person supporting the other candidate, guess what? They're a mirror to you. Where in you
Exactly.
are you hating yourself?
Exactly. Yeah. Where in you did you do all the things that you're so sure this other person has done?
Right.
And it's literally equal across the board, like you said. It is literally across the board. And so when you say things like, consciousness is shifting and everything, it's always like, oh, that's good. It's good because depending on where you place your attention, right?
Mhm.
Plenty of people, and I'm not in that camp, but plenty of people can make the argument that no, nothing's happening, nothing's shifting. I don't think so. I think there's more and more podcasts like yours. There's more and more people coming out like this. There's more and more people to talk to. But I don't know about you, but like when you surround yourself with a certain people that are interested in the same types of things, you have all these conversations, you feel hope. You're like, oh, this is great. Then you like walk out into the world one day and you're like, oh my God, no, like there's a lot of people that still have no idea that
True,
we,
but like I'm not consciously looking for it, but I see it. Like a couple
oh,
months ago, I was at a bar and this kid um had a quartz crystal necklace and he had the flower of life tattooed on him in small town Oregon.
hmm,
And I'm like, okay, that tells me something's shifting. And then a couple weeks ago, I was in Walmart and a girl had an amethyst quartz and it was really big and she's the checkout girl and I'm like, wow, that's really beautiful because that's one of the things I do is I compliment people to like bring them
yeah.
out, wake them up. And she was like, yeah, it broke my phone. The universe was telling me that I had to stop using my phone so much. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
God, wait a minute. Do you want to hear the weirdest thing? I was listening to, because I was getting ready for this podcast yesterday, I was listening to that podcast that you shared that story
Oh,
on.
cool. That's cool.
And I was going into the store. I wanted to get some incense because we're staying in a VRBO and I wanted to clear
Yeah.
the energy. And I go up to the desk And I forgot like sort of the stone that you had mentioned and everything, but I went up
Mm.
to the desk to go buy this incense. And then I was like, oh no, there are these stones over there I want to look at first. So I started to go back over to the stones. I started looking at the stones. I decided not to buy any. I came back to the desk, and this amethyst quartz was sitting on the countertop.
Mhm.
And the checkout guy who had been standing there the whole time said, "Is that yours? Are you buying that too?" I said, "No, I didn't put that there." And he said, "Okay." And he put it aside. I said, "Do you remember it being there a minute ago when I came up?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, where did it come from?" He said, "I don't know."
Wow.
I said, "I guess I shall buy it because I'm meant to have it." This
Yep.
amethyst. Isn't that so weird?
That is
It was
wild.
right. It was actually right around when you were telling that story, because I went, out of the car and into the thing, and then back to the car and picked up the story again. And so it's funny because I remember the story, but I didn't remember you said amethyst quartz.
Yeah. Well, and that's for spiritual help. That'll open your third eye. I mean, it's crazy. If you put amethyst in your water, it will change the frequency of the water if you set the
Yeah.
intention. So it's like, but the thing is like I'm just seeing it in little hints. I'm not looking for it, but I see and I feel it, and it's like, and because I'm so attuned to the Schumann resonance, whether or not I want to be, because I love grounding. And I just started seeing puffy clouds a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, ah, puffy clouds, I haven't seen them in so long. So like I'm just geeking out on the puffy clouds when I see them. And so I'm just laying and grounding and stuff like that, and is opening me up to different frequencies.
Yeah.
And so because I'm in that space, I can see things that I didn't see before. And even though the chaos outside of whatever, I don't really have any concern or interest in what's going on in politics,
No.
because it just creates separation.
Right. That's all it is.
And when I tune into the heart resonance of another person, like I am with you, that's what matters.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, 1,000%. And like, I'm not going to be dragged into these conversations. I don't care. But
Right.
what's so funny is that my husband and I, we both actually woke up this morning with a headache, and we could not, just couldn't get back to sleep. It was very early, and we were like, let's just go for a walk and kind of get some fresh air. And I was kind of reflecting on, the different, this podcast and some of the other ones I'm on, and just this conversation, how much more common this conversation is that we're having around energy and everything. And I was saying to him, like, it's so funny because I was listening to your episode, one of your episodes, and you have these conversations with people, myself included, like there's no there's not speculation. It's just like, yeah, we are energy, and you're talking to your guides, and I'm talking to my guy, all this stuff, right? And I said to him, I said, but like so many people, if they heard this, they think we're crackpots. They think they can't even wrap their head around it. And it's so fascinating to I don't know, it's just fascinating how the truths are so different, you
Well,
know.
I had a couple weeks ago, I was on a networking call, and the guy I was talking to, he did videography in Delaware, I think he was, and his dachshund recently died, and he's single, and he's like, sometimes I hear her. I'm like, yes, you do. And he was like, really? And he was like, so like, he was questioning himself. I'm no, honey, like I do this for a living. Um, she's talking to you.
Mhm.
And he got so happy because he missed her so much. And I mean, it was so endearing because he was an introvert, and this was his love, and she transitioned, and he was at a loss. And to be able to give that support to him and the encouragement, I think
Yeah.
people are more open to the fact, like when I was 10, I would have loved to have conversations with this person.
Right, right, right.
but but like, yeah, that's the normal part.
Yeah.
Like this illusion that we're this 3D individual, like we're not,
Body.
right, like we're multidimensional, like, and how I see multidimensional is I love to bake and drive a BMW 60 miles an hour around a corner. Like that's an
Yes.
aspect of
There's
multidimensionality.
Right, there's two different parts of you. I always say, like, people, they get identified with the I am the kind of person who this, I am the kind of person who that, I think this, I think that. Well, guess what? Like, I'm the kind of person who wants to get in shape, and I'm also the kind of person that wants to eat all the chocolate cake.
Mhm.
So those are two separate parts. That's not a singular I. That's
Mhm.
two I's.
Right,
And there's about a gajillion I's inside me.
right.
I've got all kinds of different parts. And the more we can be acknowledging those parts and seeing them just as parts of ourselves instead of identifying so hardly with them, like, then we can be more compassionate to ourselves and to other people. Like, oh, well, I guess that part's out in my spouse right now. Their critical part or my nagging part is out.
Right,
It doesn't have to define, you
right.
know, me or you or any of us. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah, this is what being human is.
Yeah.
We have to live in this body. We've got to live in this human experience. And it's really not that easy, you
No,
know,
especially without a manual.
especially without a manual. Yeah, you don't get a manual. So like the more you can learn, and that's what I really enjoy working with people and helping them sort of lay down a new operating system so
Mm,
they're able to live life with more ease and flow, and less stress and anxiety and more self-acceptance and growing their empathy muscles. And when you do that, you like who you are better too. Your relationships go better, you perform better, your health and wellness is everything's better,
mhm,
and the fallacy that all of these these pushing ourselves and driving ourselves and all of that stuff made our success is ridiculous. I mean, it might have, but it made us very unhappy in the interim.
yep,
And you can get all those things and be in joy and inspiration. But you have to
crazy.
practice. It's just
Yeah.
not that easy, right? Because shit happens and it's upsetting.
Oh, yeah, no, and but the thing is, like, I I have the gift of having mastered triggers. Not happy, not like I'm not, it wasn't a fun journey, but I have. So, like, when somebody triggers me, it's like, okay, where am I carrying? I'm not going to project it out.
Yes, you're gonna hold
That's
it in.
just gonna
Right.
perpetuate it. So,
Yes.
like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be present with myself, and if you see me cry, you can leave if you want, but I'm going to, like, feel myself because there's a part of me that I couldn't see before
Yes.
that needs my attention. And
Yeah.
that's trippy to a lot of people because it's like, "Oh, you're not gonna engage?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 I just found this amazing piece of me that I couldn't see before. So I'm just gonna excuse myself for the conversation so I can pay attention to this, and then we can resume it later." And it's like this, it doesn't just disrupt my neural pathways, it disrupts theirs.
Disrupts theirs. And what I love about that too is that it goes back to kind of what we were talking about, right? I mean, that when we're triggered by something, like something that triggers you might not trigger me, and something that triggers
Right.
me wouldn't trigger you. So obviously, the only reason that we're triggered when we're triggered is that there's something inside of us. This is a mirror for something that we are disavowing, or we're doing something something that has to be worked out inside us.
Mhm.
And the more we can just hold ourselves and take care of ourselves and work on healing that part. I mean,
Mhm.
God, can you imagine what the world we would be in? If you just, I always say, if you just focused on that, on you, and I just focused on this, there would be nothing to argue about.
I know.
Nothing.
And then we can collaborate and co-create and
Yeah, you can be you and you can have your thoughts and opinions and I can have mine and we can coexist. It's not brain science. Like it's really, yeah. So I love that. That's a great way of putting that. I really like how you put that.
thank you. Well, it's important because, like, we're so used to putting aside our feelings to make others happy or to make them feel comfortable. And, usually when I'm in this state, it doesn't last long.
Yeah.
If it does, I'll just leave the room and be like, I'll be back in a couple hours. This one's deep. Um, but it's usually just like I just have to be present. And if I see somebody else doing it, I'll be like, hey, just and some people like it and most people don't. Just noticing that you're throwing a trigger at somebody else because you were triggered. Now you're traumatizing that person. S-
Exactly.
So why don't you back off, apologize, and sit with yourself?
Yeah.
That's like I trigger people with that too.
Oh,
But
yeah,
it's like you're responding to something your little 5-year-old is feeling right now,
right.
and you're defending yourself, and that's okay, but wouldn't it be better to feel what that little 5-year-old wants?
Well, and not only that, but when you make a decision to sort of hold in the negativity and not let it out, you're raising your consciousness.
Mhm.
Right. And then whenever we raise our consciousness, it impacts other people
Yeah.
and neurons and, all those things. And so we're contributing to the collective consciousness.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that really gets in the way of that, of course, is the addiction that we have to suffering and the addiction that we have to our emotions. And I
Mhm.
think we've all experienced that time where, you just start blurting out,
Oh, yeah.
right? And I think there's times along the way of that journey of learning to become less reactive in different areas
Mhm.
where you even have the experience of, or at least I've had the experience of, I understand that I'm in a reaction. I understand that I am in like saboteur mode in my brain and body,
Mhm.
and I just can't stop. I just can't stop from, you know, letting the nag out or, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And it takes a lot of practice and time, to unwire these things,
Oh, yeah,
and you,
especially when like, I will say I don't have any proof of this whatsoever, but my sense is all of our addictions stem from not wanting to feel our feelings.
yeah. I mean, there's a physiological addiction. I mean, the way when you take in information, you take in an imprint from the outside world and you run it through your own perception, right? And you have, the body and the brain always want to be in the same rhythm. You always want to be thinking and feeling the same thing. And emotions are really chemicals in the body. And so if you have like an angry thought, that goes down into your body in the form of a chemical and it does hit your adrenal glands and then you get a rush of energy. So I think there is the physiological addiction as well. It's
Yeah.
sort of like, the same way of if you, drink a bottle of, energy drink or something, you're going to get a rush.
Right.
We get addicted to that rush,
Mhm.
whatever it is. Now, the same is true. We could get addiction to like joy and inspiration if we tried to like run those more and it hit
Right.
whatever, I don't know if that hits the pituitary gland or whatever that is.
Yeah.
You get a reaction out of that.
Mhm.
And then you would start running that thinking and feeling feedback loop.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I tend to agree that from the emotional side, we've been conditioned to really not feel. And I've had these conversations, with clients before too. Like, it's so funny how we habitually just literally like they're just feelings. I remember saying this when I was in a psychotherapist, like they're just emotions, you
Mhm.
know. They can't do anything to you.
Right.
But wow, are they strong? And I experience it in myself as well. Like, oh no, I don't want to feel that.
Yeah.
And it takes an act of will to
Oh, yeah.
say, wait a minute. No, no, no. And going into the body, I think is really where that's at, right? It's like, where do I feel it in my body? Let's just stay with that. Let's
Mhm.
breathe through that. Let's just let it be there.
Right, and that is a daily practice truly, because, like, getting used to feeling our bodies,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I was an expert in numbing myself out for 40 years. So when I started doing somatic work, I was like, "Wait, I have a body. Oh, really? I do?" And then, like, feeling it and, like, having these massive purges of crying for maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
And then,
And then my body, like, getting used to the fact that I was paying attention to it.
yeah.
It took practice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now, if I feel something at, like, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll just, like, "Okay, I'm just hearing you, I'm just being present," and I feel stuff moving while I'm just being present because my body knows that it's safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So that's so much of what the body just wants. It just wants to know it's safe, right? Yeah. Beautiful. I love that.
Thank you. Hmm. I am so enjoying this.
Yeah, it's lovely. It really is lovely.
Yeah, so how, like, what let's try that again. Is there some, like, right now with your clients, is there any particular theme that you're noticing that is difficult for them to work through?
You know, I think that there's just in general, it's just so much emotional dysregulation,
Okay.
and really not understanding, I'm beginning to understand, that when we're in the throes of things, negative emotions and whatnot, it's all just emotional dysregulation. Like as soon as you can regulate yourself and shift from one state of being to another state of being, all is well in the world. And I think if there's a theme, among my clients, because of course, you always, I think you work with people that, you teach what you need to heal, as well.
Mhm.
And I feel, and I've felt for a while now that really the underlying issue for so many people, if not all people, is worthiness.
Mhm.
It's really just this question of am I enough, which we've known for a long time is like a major driver.
Mhm.
Uh, and people have different ways of working it out, right? Like maybe they're a people pleaser, and so they work out their worthiness that way. As maybe they're, like I mentioned, hyperachieving. Maybe they're controlling. That's how they unconsciously calm themselves down.
Mhm.
And so I always say your serenity is the only emergency.
Mm.
Whatever your parts are telling you has to happen right now,
Mm.
it's not true.
Right,
Like you can't accurately evaluate what needs to happen right now
right,
until you find serenity, because you're just not accessing the right part of your brain to get that information. You're going
right,
to make decisions that are knee jerk, that are based off of, well, I have a right to feel this way, or they shouldn't do this, that, or the other, or, oh my God, they're upset. I got to do this, or, I can't believe I'm so terrible. I'm gonna, it's just there. It's not coming from the inside, right? It's not coming from that place.
right.
So I feel like for those that will listen, right? For those, and I'm not for everybody, like not everybody really is interested in getting to know this machinery that we have better, getting to, you know, really find that sort of inner peace and that place inside themselves and that power within. Uh,
Mhm.
but for those of us that are, that are really seeking that, like I always say, I spent a couple of years unmemorizing envy once, and it was a big neural network. And
Yeah,
yeah, it was a big deal. And, you know, that to me is a greater accomplishment than any stage I could speak on or any book I could write or whatever. Not that I wouldn't love to do those things. I would, but as soon as I do them, my hyperachiever would be like, okay, that's good. Now what do you want to? Where are you going to prove your worth next?
right, right.
Like to me, it's these moments of being able to overcome ourselves. Like
Yeah.
I remember the first time my older son, like didn't pack him lunch for his double header, and I didn't feel guilty, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, I didn't feel guilty. And I actually, like, I didn't even stay for his second game. I went to my meeting and he said, I'm really hungry, Mom. I said, oh my God, I bet you are. You played really hard. And he said, well, do you have any food? I said, I don't. He said, can you take me to get some? I said, I can't remember. I told you I got that meeting. I said, I think I have a bar in the car. Do you want me to get that? And he said, no, that's okay. And I said, okay. And I went to my meeting and I was like, oh my God, I don't feel guilty. I don't have a pit in my stomach. I don't
Oh,
feel anything because I unmemorized that guilt, which by the way, didn't serve either of us because the
right,
kid never learned to pack a lunch for himself.
right.
He's 21, he's still starving wherever he goes. Like so I mean that's not really true. I shouldn't say that, but
Yeah.
uh, to me that was such a huge accomplishment, and
Oh, I
so
totally get that. I had one of those like in the past month, I just I just became neutral with a combination of controlling, narcissism, and codependency, all wrapped in one person. And I was neutral with her.
Oh my
And
God.
I was so happy. I was like,
Right?
oh my God, like the PhD is nothing. This is
Because that's freedom. Because
right,
that is freedom.
right.
Just wrote a blog on that on July 4th. That is freedom,
Yeah,
right? That's why I say liberation's an inside job.
yeah.
Because there's nothing that makes you feel freer than that. When
Mhm,
you are no longer being dragged around like a tire on the back of a rope in a truck by
mhm.
other people's actions and the
Yeah,
circumstances of your life. When
yep.
you're no longer dragged around by those, that is freedom.
Mm,
You get to choose how you feel every day. You get to choose.
mm,
There's nothing like that.
right. I love that so much. Mm.
Yeah.
I just glanced at the time. All right. I'm so sad. Okay, so I'm gonna ask the question, how do people find you, my dear?
Yeah. So I'm at www.abbyhavermann.com, ABBYHAVERMANN. And you can go to my blogs and sign up and get on my newsletter. You will be directed to download a free ebook, 7 Steps to Stop Self-Sabotage and uncover some of those unconscious thoughts. And
Mm,
there's a bunch of other, and then you'll be prompted to, be able to get involved in some other ways.
awesome.
Yeah.
Abby, I am so grateful
Oh,
for the time that I've been able to spend with you and for your light, for the work you do in the world, and for your beingness.
oh, thank you. Thank you, Sophia. I'm grateful to have been here as well. It was really, really nice.
It
Thanks for
really was. Thank you, thank you, thank you.